sinners were coming near to him to listen to him. Both the Pharisees and the scribes began to grumble, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." Join me in prayer. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this morning. We thank you that we have the ability to come together to worship you freely, openly. Lord, help us see not ourselves in this parable today. Lord, let us see you. Let us see what a wonderful, amazing, glorious God you are. Lord, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this gathering. We ask all this in your Son's most precious name. Amen. We receive it. Now, I wanted to set the setting because it's important to the parables. We have Jesus sitting with tax collectors and sinners. Now, I know in our day and age we aren't big fans of the IRS. Let's just be honest. Right? None of us likes writing that check to them or looking at the check we get and seeing how much is withheld. But that's not the equivalent of the first century tax collector. Here's what the first century tax collector was. The first century tax collector was a citizen of the city in which he lived that had been taken by force and oppressed by the Romans. And this citizen decides, you know what? I'd like to make a little extra money on the side. So what he would do is he would buy the rights to collect taxes from his fellow citizens. Doesn't seem so bad at first, right? But here's what he'd do. If you owed $20 in taxes to the Roman government, the tax collector comes by, he collects 30. 20 goes to Rome, 10 goes to the tax collector. If you can imagine, the tax collectors weren't real popular people. Right? They were basically viewed as traitors. This is who Jesus is teaching. This is who's coming to him. This is who the Pharisees grumble about Jesus and teaching. They grumble about Jesus teaching the people who were viewed as the lowest of the low in their society. Tax collectors were, by and large, the most hated people in any city. After this, we get two parables before we get to the parable we're going to look at today. We have the parable of the lost sheep and the parable of the lost coin. In both cases, we have someone going and finding the sheep, the woman going and finding the coin. When it's found, a big party is thrown. And then we have our parable today, beginning in verse 11. Our parable says, "And he said, a man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of the estate that falls to me.' So he divided his wealth between them." Between them means him and his older brother. Here's what's going on. The son comes to the father and he says, "Dad, as the younger son, I'm entitled to 1/3 of your estate when you pass away." There wasn't a will. That's just the way it was. The eldest got 2/3, the youngest received 1/3. He comes to him and says, "Dad, you're still alive, but I want my inheritance now." Think of the audacity of that statement. Coming to your father and saying, "I want my inheritance. I want what's owed to me, not when you pass away, as it should be, but I want it now." Fathers, what would you do to your children? It's be honest. I'm not going to whip out the checkbook and go, here's 1/3 of everything I have, see you later, bye. See you later, bye, maybe, but not the checkbook. But the Father gives the Son what he asks for. He gives him his third. You know what that is? It's grace. That's grace. The Father doesn't say to the Son, you know what, go to your room. The Father doesn't say to the Son, you know what, get out of here. He doesn't take the belt from his tunic and have a go at him. In grace, he gives him what he asks for despite the audacity of the Son. Let's read on, starting in 13. It says, and not many days later, the younger son gathered everything together and went on a journey into a distant country. And there he squandered his estate with loose living. Now when he had spent everything, a severe famine occurred in that country, and he began to be impoverished. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed the swine. And he would have gladly filled his stomach with the pods the swine were eating, and no one was giving anything to him. So the son, receiving his third, spends a couple of days at home getting all his stuff ready, and he takes off. He takes off, goes to another country, probably a country that's a little more liberal than the one he's currently residing in. Why do I say that? I say that because of the way he lived in that country. It's translated in the NASB as loose living. The son took 1/3 of the inheritance, or of his father's possessions, his inheritance, that which was due to him when his father passed, and went and partied. He took the grace his dad had given him and spent it so that he could live in sin. Spent every last dime. Was so poor that he had to hire himself out, and was so hungry that he'd eat the pods that the swine he was feeding were eating. He becomes a beggar. Why? Because he wanted to live his life his way. And he did. And now he's feeling the consequences of his actions. And these are dire consequences, folks. I know some of y'all in here are familiar with swine. Would you want to eat their food? I wouldn't. He said, our text tells us he would have gladly eaten it. That's how bad off he was. You know, typically, I understand most of y'all that have pigs in here for show, so you feed them a little better, but what do you typically feed pigs? Junk, right? Whatever's left over. When I was growing up, my uncle lived on a dairy. And on the dairy was a family friend of ours that owned this dairy. And they had pigs, and I can remember going in seeing Reggie go in with a slop bucket to feed the pigs. Slop bucket is a pretty accurate term. I can't imagine looking at that and going, I would gladly eat that if the pigs would let me have a little. That's hunger, right? He's feeling the consequences. So what does he do? Let's read on. 17. But when he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired men have more than enough bread, but I am dying here with hunger? I will get up, I will go to my father, I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against you, against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired men." It says he comes to his senses, right? I'm going to go beg my dad to take me back, not as his son, but as one of his hired men. To be one of his hands. Why? Because my dad's hands live better than I do. They have food. And I'm over here salivating over the stuff the pigs eat. I guess they didn't have the 99-cent menu back then. Right? But he goes on and he rehearses. He rehearses what he's going to say. Any of you ever done this? You got to go face Dad, and so you're rehearsing the best way to say it, right? This is the way that's going to get me in the least amount of trouble, or this is the way, if I say this to Dad, this way, he's going to do what I need. Right? So he's basically saying to his father, I'm going to ask you for the least that you could do for me. I want the least. Just make me a hired hand. Feed me and let me have a place over my head. Because right now, I'm sleeping with pigs and I'm fighting them for the pods that they don't want. No one's given me anything. I'm a beggar. Verse 20. So he got up and he came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion for him and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to the father, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Right? He starts in on his rehearsed speech. Dad sees him from afar and runs to the son who had the audacity to come to him and say, Dad, you're not dead, but I want my inheritance now because I got some partying to do and you're standing in the way. And the father runs to greet him. You notice something about the son's speech? He barely got into it. He gets the first sentence of his rehearsed speech out. And what does the father say? But the father said to his slaves, Quickly, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf. Kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and has come to life again. He was lost and has been found, and they began to celebrate. Grace again. When the son wants the very least from the father, what does he get? He gets the best robe, rings on his fingers, sandals. Go kill the fatted calf. Let's have a barbecue and party. Not the way the son had been partying, but let's have a celebration. Why? What did he say? This son of mine was dead. Not because of the father, but because of the son. This son was dead, and he's come back. Let's celebrate. You see, here's the thing that I think we miss. One of the things that we miss in all of this. You see, we look at this as a parable of evangelism. It's a parable of the grace of God. What do we get when we come to the Father? Do we get what we deserve? What do we deserve? Let's be honest. Damnation. yet we get God's best. We get the best robe. We may not feel like it, but we do. We get treasure stored up for eternity. You think there's not celebration when one sinner comes down that lonely road and the Father greets him? We know that Scripture tells us the angels celebrate. The Father exhibits grace beyond the measure of any that we would have. Folks, I know my job as a pastor is to try and be gracious and exhibit these things. But if that was my son, I'm not so sure that I'm going to have the same reaction. Now we read in 25. Now his older son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. And he summoned one of the servants and began inquiring what these things could be. And he said to him, "Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he received him back safe and sound." But he became angry and was not willing to go in. And his father came out and began pleading with him. So the older brother, who's out working, here's what's going on. Does he go say, "Okay, let me go talk to Dad? Let me go ask the one who's in charge"? No, he calls a servant over to him. And he says, "What's going on? Why am I not aware of this party that's going on? Why is there dancing? I hear music. I can smell the calf being cooked. What is going on?" And the servant says to him, "Your brother has returned and your father is celebrating." What's the brother's response? "Well, I'm going to stay out here. I'll show you." Who's really for the one suffering? There's a party going on because my brother's back. My father is exhibiting grace beyond measure, but I deserve something. So I'll show you. I'll stay outside, and I won't go to your party. And the Father again exhibits grace. How he comes out, and he pleads with him. It says, "But he answered," verse 29, "and said to the father, 'Look, for so many years I have been serving you. I've never neglected a command of yours, and yet you've never even given me a young goat, so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your wealth with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.'" She's saying, "You never even let me hang out with my friends and cook up a goat. So I'm not going inside because I've done for you." What's the older son trying to do? The older brother is trying to talk to the father and telling him why he's merited grace. Grace cannot be demanded. If it's demanded, it ceases to be grace. But because you didn't even give me a goat, I'm going to stay outside, and I'm going to show all of you, because it's going to ruin your day that I'm not in there partying with you guys and dancing and having a good time with my brother. See, if this was me and that was my son, I'd be like, "Okay, later. I'm going to go back in because, man, that fatted calf is good. I want to get in before somebody eats all the filet." I'm just being honest, y'all. But what does the Father say? He says, He said to him, verse 31, Son, you have always been with me, and all that I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice. For this brother of yours, remember it was this son of yours, was dead and has begun to live, and was lost and has been found. What's he talking about? He's talking about grace. This is the disposition of our Heavenly Father. No matter what it is that we did in our former life, before we were saved, right? The brother goes through the list of all the horrible things that his younger brother had done. And the father says, yes, you've always been with me. But this one was gone. He was dead to us. And now he's back and he's alive. So I have to celebrate. You already have all that's mine. There's a few things we need to see in this. One, the awesome, amazing, bewildering grace of God. Two, how do we receive people as they come into the kingdom? Do we look at them and say, oh, I remember all the things that you had done, like the older brother, or are we like the father? None of that matters anymore. You were dead. Now you're alive. Let's celebrate. I had a pastor when I first started in ministry who he had this way of saying things to me that were so profound yet irksome. I was doing youth ministry. This was in Denver. We had a bus ministry. And like 2/3 the kids who came on the bus ministry were unsaved. And they behaved like it. They do things at church that you ought to not do at church. And I'd get upset. And I'd get mad. And I'd go talk to him. We can't let this kid come back anymore. You know what he did tonight? And he'd look at me and say, Chris, lost people are going to act lost. That hurt. Why? Because I was being the older brother. I wanted my young goat when all these other kids were getting the cow. I just wanted the goat so I could party with my friends too. Let's have the disposition of the Father. Gracious. So that's the way He dealt with us. Gracious. If you're here this morning and you've been a long ways off from the Father, living life a way that does not please Him, separated from Him, you have the opportunity to walk down that road, to come to the Father. In just a moment, I'm going to close in a word of prayer. And I'm going to ask during that time that if that's you, that you silently, prayerfully confess that to Him. Then Sarah Lynn will come forward and we'll have a hymn of invitation. And I'm going to be standing down here waiting to receive you. Come forward and just allow me to pray with you, to begin walking beside you and to celebrate in grace. If you're here this morning and there's anything else the Lord has laid upon your heart, I ask that you prayerfully lift that up to Him during this time as well. And join me in prayer. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you that as we come to you, you're already running to us. We don't know it, but you've been calling, drawing, bringing us to you, breaking us down to the point that we can say, yes, Lord, I need you. Because grace cannot be demanded. But Lord, you give it abundantly. And we thank you for that. Because if it wasn't for your grace, we'd all be lost. We'd all be the younger brother, living apart from our Father. But we thank you that we have a big brother who is unlike the big brother in our story this morning, Lord. It's Jesus, the brother who gave his life to see us come to you, so that we can be called into the family of God. We thank you for the many ways that you bless us. Help us to see that. Lord, we love you and pray all these things in your Son's most precious name.